In the claim of today's theme.
I don't know about that, Dr. Ross. Can you kindly bring Dr. Johnson up?
Okay. Um, there we go. And Lance, how you doing, Lance?
There we go.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate you asking. Hope everybody's having a great day.
Thank you for wishing that, brother, and I wish it to everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, we see the second part of Bailey and Bailey's here. Hello, ladies. Okay, so we normally about 5 after the hour kind of give a formal introduction. So we have about another minute, and if everyone on stage is ready, you guys let me know. Um, and we can get the ball rolling. Miss Yodit is our uh, primary host here today. I'll be backing her up as she need be. Um, so whenever you're ready, ma'am, let me know.
Thank you, Dr. Russ. We're just waiting for one more speaker. I've just reached out to her to see if she's joining us.
Okay.
Yes, Miss Mimi Dintwa.
All right. In the meantime, hello, Alex. Miss Kim, are there any housekeeping things we can do in the next minute or two while we wait for the final speaker?
Thank you, Dr. Ras, and hello, everyone. Good to see you all. Good to see you, Dr. Gladys, Miss Judith. Um, hey Kim, hey Mark,
Hello.
welcome.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Pretty well,
Oh,
very
great,
audible,
great. That's wonderful. Thank you. Hello there.
Good afternoon.
and good to
Glad
see
to
you,
be
Lance.
here.
You're welcome, Kim. So exciting to see some folks from the hood.
The hood. I like that.
We live in a very small city. So if we don't know each other when we meet in an audio room, we just need to have a little conversation and we shop in the same grocery store. Our kids go to the same school. We live in a city with 200,000 people. So you can imagine, we're just one big family.
Hmm.
And hello, Selassie. Now that I've been given the mic, and this is my only opportunity to get the mic, let me just exhaust it, right?
Thank you, Miss Kim. Maybe you can also do, because I don't see, oh, there we go. Never mind. Please go ahead. And then if I may ask Miss Paula to then take over from you just to say the introductions and hello, and then I'll get right to it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm still doing my greetings. Please, just one more minute. I love my voice, right? And Dr. Gladys said I have a beautiful voice. Ever since I'm milking every moment I have to use my voice.
Miss Kim, take the time now because we won't let you speak again until the end. So take the time you need.
I know. I know you're starting the countdown. Hey, Miss Paula. Hey, Selassie. And Selassie, something is happening in the world of LinkedIn that when once you get up, you can go down. But I'll still try my tech quiz to see if we can. Hello, Lance. And since Michael is here, hey, Michael, you down there? I would love to have you here. And if you don't want to join us, well, it's just still there. Can you please help with the recording? And that gives me an opportunity to announce we're recording today's audio room. So, and hi, Talajit. How nice to see you. Hey, Matilda. Hey, Ninja. Hey, Cara. And hey, Alex. Super awesome and excited about the topic for the day. And I think my 1 minute is over, so I'll gladly pass the mic over to Miss Paula. Thank you and welcome to the show. Welcome to the Happiness Tribe.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Miss Sally. Thank you, Dr. Roz, the entire team, all our visitors and friends, Brother Mark Johnson, all of the family. Welcome back, Kim, Talia, Alex, everyone. Matilda, we're excited about having your contribution as well. Thank you all for spending this time with us this Sunday. We know you could be doing all kinds of things. So it's a pleasure and we appreciate your presence here within the family. So today's topic is teen anxiety and depression. How can we help? What is it? How can we recognize, identify it, and how can we help within that process, right? In the fast-paced world filled with mounting pressures, it's easy to overlook the silent battles our young people face on a daily basis. And by the way, this is global. This is not specific to any region. It's everywhere. Whether it's school stress, social pressure, or internal challenges, the struggle is real. So this week, we want to speak with our experts on the panel today, some dealing with trauma, dealing with whatever types of treatments that's happening, and how do we identify the struggles that our young people, whether it's children, grandchildren, or extended family may be going through, and even employees. So welcome, thank you, and let's get this party started. Dr. Roz or
Yes.
Yodit, I'm not sure which one of you have the mic. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Paula. And before Yoda gets started, I'd like to say thank you all again for being here at the Happiness Tribe. And as we get into our
Hello,
hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
can
you,
anyone
Dr.
hear
Ross.
me?
Yes,
Dr.
I hear
Roz?
Yes,
everyone speaking.
we heard you, Miss Paula. We can hear
Okay.
you.
Well, Brother Mark, I will let the host take over. Dr. Roz, you can take over, have everyone introduce themselves.
Yes.
Thank
Yes. So before we get started with the introduction, I wanted to mention here at the Happiness Tribe, the conversation we'll have over the next hour and a half will be on a specific topic. Again, the comments and things that you hear here are the individual comments. This is not any medical advice from LinkedIn or from the Happiness Tribe. We're here to have a discussion on topics that we are knowledgeable about professionally as well as personally. And again, this is a conversation. This is not medical advice. So we just have to mention that. And now, Miss Yodit, if you would like to introduce yourself as the host, and then we'll introduce our guests and get started on this wonderful, important topic about our children of today and the leaders of tomorrow.
Thank you, Dr. Ross. Thank you, Miss Paula. And thank you, Miss Kim, for the lovely introductions to our podcast this afternoon. Welcome to everyone who has joined us. It's a Sunday. We appreciate that you're taking the time to join us in this very important conversation. And we welcome you to the Happiness Tribe. The Happiness Tribe and the conversations that we have are meant to share knowledge, encourage networking and solutioning, for some of the problems that we all face wherever we are. My name is Yodit Mulusi, and I'm passionate about educating, inspiring, and connecting people, and very intent on working towards building a better world. And I believe that is the intent of all my fellow colleagues on the Happiness Tribe. So it's a pleasure to be with everyone today. Our conversation today will be about young people and some of the mental challenges or mental health issues that they have. I have a bias for young people, maybe because I'm a mother, but also because they really inspire me. They're extremely brave. I feel that they are struggling with more issues than some of us ever did 20, 30 years ago. I may be wrong, but that's what I feel. And then I think importantly, on the continent of Africa, 60% of our population is made out of youth. So we really need to take a step back and understand and appreciate what their challenges are and what is it that we need to do to build a better world for them. What are some of the things that we need to put in place? Our conversation this afternoon is exciting for a couple of reasons. The first one is because we are talking to professionals who've dedicated their lives to working with young people and assisting them with their challenges. The second one, and something that I'm still in awe of, is technology and how technology brings us together to discuss different things. So we have in the audience today our invited guests. One is sitting right here in Botswana, where we are with Miss Kim, and we have a guest also from the United States. So welcome, and thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. Before I jump in to ask our guests to introduce who they are and what they do and why they've chosen this profession, I just wanted to share some insights from the World Health Organization and UNICEF. Both have acknowledged that we have a serious challenge on our hands, and that we need to move faster to address this challenge, and that being young people and the mental health issues. The WHO tells us that globally, 1 in 7, 10 to 19-year-olds experience a mental disorder, accounting for 13% of the global burden of the disease in this age group. That's I didn't even know this. Just doing some research. They go on to say depression, anxiety, and behavioral disorders are among the leading causes of illness and disability amongst adolescents. Suicide is the fourth leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds. I know here in Botswana, we have a very high rate of suicide amongst young people, and I'm hoping that Kim maybe will share some of the knowledge that she has around this. But it's quite serious. You know, one suicide is one too many. And then finally, they say the consequence of failing to address adolescent mental health conditions extend to adulthood, impairing both physical and mental health and limiting opportunities to lead fulfilling lives as adults. And then one more fact from UNICEF, if I may. UNICEF tells us that even before COVID, because we know that the COVID pandemic brought with it a whole host of additional mental health issues, or compounded the issues that we already had. They say children and young people carried the burden of mental health risks, with half of all mental disorders developing before age 15 and 75% by early adulthood. So these are some very frightening statistics, and all the more reason why we need to have robust conversations about what we should be doing individually and in the communities that we live and work in. So with that background, if I
Miss
may now turn to our
Miss
guests.
Mildred, can I add
Yes,
a little statistic to this? You made a great point,
absolutely.
and it made me think of something. So with the COVID, as a researcher, I discovered, I came across some information that through the COVID experience, what we found out was that individuals under the age of 35, through that housing um, part of COVID where we was really on lockdown, that so the age in the body ages biologically at a certain pace every year, like just the wear and tear and all that. But how you age biologically, it can be quantified. And what was determined was that the COVID stress of the lockdown accelerated the biological growth of individuals that were 35 and lower, significantly more than older individuals. I hope that makes some sense. But so individuals that were much older, the stress of the COVID, even though it was evident a lot of individuals were dying, had immune issues and this and that, but the what it did for biologically aging the body was much more significant for the young folks, and we're still trying to understand why. But yes, what you're saying, the mental health, when you look at the statistics post COVID, it impacted the world, but it also had a very special impact on these young individuals who are determining at the same time who and what they want to be in a world that was undetermined. So it's a lot of psychological impact that's being um, unpacked now. So I just wanted to add that to it as well.
Thank you, Dr. Russ. Appreciate your contribution. It gives us a little bit more to unpack and think about. Um, Let me turn to Miss Kim Kelaotswe. I hope I've pronounced your last name correctly. You'll forgive me. Please introduce yourself to us. Who are you? What do you do? And why are you interested in mental health issues amongst youth?
All of the people that have dedicated their time to this cause. My name is Kim Kelaotswe. I am a psychosocial support officer at Hope Worldwide Botswana. And Hope Worldwide Botswana is basically a non-profit making organization which is fully dependent on donor funding, and its main objective is to improve the quality of life of orphaned and vulnerable children and their parents and caregivers and improve gender-based violence responses. So I think mental health is a very interesting field to participate in, because you you participate in it as a professional, but also as a person that has been affected by it, and a person that has interacted with people that have been affected by it on a personal level. So it's kind of difficult to separate yourself from the field and what it has and what it provides, and the challenges it experiences, such as mental health illness in youth, which is a topic that is pretty high, like Ms. Yodet had mentioned with the statistics that she gave, and particularly for us at Hope Worldwide, because the majority of the people that we offer services to are, children aged 10 to 24. So mental health illness is something that affects them greatly, like we have already mentioned. So yeah, I'm just glad that we have the ability to be able to participate in such conversations. I'm looking forward to this.
Great. Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you for introducing yourself. We'll get into some of the other questions about specifically what you're doing in a few minutes. Dr. Mark Johnson, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Can you kindly introduce yourself and tell
Yes,
us
ma'am.
why
Thank
you
you.
are in this?
Thank you. I have to correct you, madam. I am not a doctor yet, but I guess from lived experiences, you can use doctor and I'll accept it. I I have been attracted to this area of trauma, particularly as it affects the youth and particularly incarcerated men, women, and juveniles. Um, Prior to my going over to the Virgin Islands, my experience is I graduated from college in '79. My degree was in criminal justice with a minor in psychology. I eventually received a master's in human resource development, but my time in the military, which resulted in post traumatic stress syndrome and some other traumas, really affected my life later on. And after I retired from the Department of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, I took a stint. I took a time where I just took a break away from all the madness, but purpose demanded that I step back into the realm of corrections and looking at returning citizens who are traumatized going back into the community to engage their children. That's why I found this whole topic very interesting, because the children with what they are experiencing is the same thing their parents are experiencing. And I had the opportunity to go to the Virgin Islands from 21 to 22. I was a warden on the island of St. Thomas of the Alexander Fairley Criminal Justice Center. And I observed the mentally ill inmates and the traumatized inmates. And I recognized the fact that they give them medication, but there was nothing cognitively uh, there to connect the heart, with the brain. And it hit me that we live in a traumatized world. And living in this traumatized world, we have to understand that our children are affected by some of the same traumas that our ancestors. And that's when we get into epigenetics, how environments uh, affect the DNA or genetics of those individuals, living in the future. So, my whole position is put boots on the ground. Let's put people in the places that need to be doing what they need to do. Miss Kim wrote a post today, and I read it, and I'll quit babbling. Her post was so epic because it referenced in our country how we're so stuck on removing information from the books, isolating and segregating, where in countries like China, they're teaching the kids how to code. Now, that happens here in America as well, but our policies are not for the kids. The school to prison pipeline is part of the major problem that we are having to face. And our children are experiencing the 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 issues they are because of the genetics, the trauma, the environments, substance abuse, and and the negative thought patterns, and just being around individuals who don't know better. So as we continue to talk, I hope to share more, but I take my lived experiences, and I am determined to go into these places, the prisons and the schools, scaling up the operation to do what the tribe wants to do. Not talk about these things, but do something. Children need to be held and then hugged. They need to understand what mindfulness is. They need to understand that they respond certain ways because of the adverse childhood experiences that they have experienced that they know nothing about, as well as their adults. So I'll stop right there, and if there's any questions, I'll answer them as we go.
Thank you very much. See, it's going to be difficult to start saying Mr. Johnson, so I'm just going to continue calling you Dr. Johnson, if that's
I received
okay.
that, sister. That may be an omen for me. Okay.
Absolutely. Let's put it out there. Thank you so much contribution. And as you were speaking, I started thinking about, again, back on the continent of Africa, where, you know, war is such a big part of the lives of children in too many
Yes.
countries. And it's something that seems so far removed. But maybe your experience addressing trauma in you know, in the work that you've been doing will give us some idea of what we can possibly start considering when
Yes.
it comes to children in those environments. Thank you so much. I see that Miss Mimi Dindwa has now joined us. Thank you so much, Mimi, for joining us this afternoon. I know you've got personal things that you were taking care of. May I ask you to please introduce yourself to us and tell us why you do what you do in the mental health space? Hi, Mimi.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, good morning to everyone. Hi, can you hear me, please?
It's breaking up a bit. Maybe try it one more time.
Hello?
Emma. We can hear you, but the connection is quite bad.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, very clearly. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm in the village, so I'm having issues with my connectivity.
Okay, we just heard the last bit, Mimi. I don't know if you want to try one more time and then.
Ugh, this is terrible. Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you clearly.
Yeah, let me try. Can you hear me now?
Hear you, Miss Mimi.
Okay,
Mhm.
Yes.
Hear
okay.
you clearly. Mhm.
I hope it won't let me down. So while I still can speak, my name is Mimi. Oh, great. My name is Mimi Dindwa, and I'm a counseling psychologist. I like to call myself the new kid on the block because I haven't been doing this in a while. I had a career pivot many years ago, and now I'm back. It's been about 5 years now, and I went back into this space because I worked for a youth radio station a few years ago. And while I was at the station, there was a lot of youth related issues we were dealing with. And with my background of psychology, I felt there was a need to address so much when it comes to mental health in young people. In our culture, mental unfortunately young people who have a lot of issues that was stemming from their childhood. So
Hi,
I
Mimi.
felt this is the right space for me to start. And it speaks to the name of my practice, which is called Dean. Those who aren't Spanish speakers, allow me to translate for you. It means roots. So this is my interpretation of dealing with issues from the beginning.
Your
And
audio,
when I speak of the beginning, I speak of when we're younger. In a child,
Mimi,
if you
Mimi.
Mimi, Mimi, you're gonna have to get your audio.
the kids on the playground, that works to your advantage because I can speak to a lot of young people and they're able to open up.
I think
Thank you,
we'll have.
Mimi.
Yes, go ahead.
Unfortunately, yes, thank you, Dr. Ras. Yeah, the connection was really bad. But we heard some of what you said. That you worked in a radio station where you were receiving a lot of information about young people and some of the challenges. And then after that, I didn't really hear much of what you were saying. I'm hoping that the connection will improve as we proceed. Oh dear, now we've lost Mimi, but her profile is available for those of you who would like to read up on what Mimi does. I do know that she's in private practice and provides counseling to young people who are dealing with mental health issues. So let me jump into
Yoda,
another question.
may I ask
Yes,
where is Mimi located?
Mimi is in Gaborone, Botswana,
Oh,
Southern Africa, the same city that I'm in.
okay, thank you.
I see.
And
Yeah.
also I wanted to mention to Mr. Johnson there, Mark, I know exactly what we're gonna do. And what you got, it just came from what you guys just talked about. And what we're going to look at is the impact of prison versus war on career perspectives in STREAM, in Africa and in America. So we got this. I got you. I know exactly what we're going to do. Thank you for attending today. We're good.
Okay. I'm glad to know that, brother.
Thank you, Dr. Ras. One of the things that's important to us here at the Happiness Tribe is making connections with people that we know are already driving change. And so this will continue to happen as we have this conversation, and we really welcome everybody who's interested in connecting with us and working towards a better world. So let me jump into my next question, and it's a very basic one. Is, what are our young people struggling with? What are the issues, and how is it communicated to you in the work that you're doing? Kim, if I can start with you.
All right. So generally, mental health issues are very specific to people. For example, two people suffering from the same condition may be affected by it in completely different ways. But in the work that we do, there's issues or themes that come up a lot or repetitively. And these issues are like mental health issues like anxiety, depression, trauma, low self-esteem, or issues or problems around self-perception. There's also psychosocial distress in the form of having problems within the family or coming from a family that is not functioning very well. There's financial distresses such as unemployment. There's a pretty high unemployment rate here in Botswana. I'm sorry, I don't have the statistics on me right now, but a lot of our youth are struggling with what happens to them after they graduate university, and sometimes they're unable to even go to university due to not being able to afford it or not being able to afford living living in Gaborone in order to access universities, because most of them are here. We have issues of substance use and abuse, and also just social issues such as the pressure to fit in, but that ties in with the issues of self-perception and self-esteem that I mentioned earlier on. Usually, there are these interventions that we have that are called safe spaces, where mentors meet weekly with people that are in their safe spaces. So usually they put mentees in their safe spaces or recipients of a program that we have called Dreams, that basically targets the 10 to 24-year-old girls and tries to intervene on different levels. So they communicate these issues in their safe spaces with their mentors, and if it requires a referral for like counseling, then we will intervene on that level as well. And generally, they communicate these issues through social media as well. We have social media pages that have been set up representing the organization for different programs that we implement, and we interact with a lot of our recipients or beneficiaries rather in these pages.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kim. I know that the work that Hope Worldwide does has a lot to do with addressing HIV issues in Botswana. I'm sure all of you know that HIV is one of the main concerns that we've had as a country, and Hope Worldwide was, oops, I've lost Kim. Hope Worldwide was instrumental in addressing some of these challenges and putting in place programs to support young people. The program that I'm aware of, or that I worked with Hope Worldwide in the past, is economic strengthening, where you try and provide, ways in which young people can learn to generate income for themselves. And I'm talking about the older youth. But Kim, and I've always wondered, when you focus primarily on economic strengthening, and you don't look at the other issues, it's problematic. Would you like to comment on that? And maybe now just share with us some of your experiences with both programs, the economic strengthening as well as the counseling that you were
Say I've made a connection between our economic empowerment programs and the effect of mental health illness. But I will say, though, that mental health illness is something that generally affects all areas of a person's life, which is what makes it so debilitating. So even for the people that we put in our economic strengthening programs, they are not necessarily based or fulfill the criteria of having mental health challenges or psychosocial challenges, but we have in place an establishment where we try to make sure of their I suppose all-round wellness, where we try to keep in touch with them in that level, where we don't just interact with them on the basis of trying to transform or help with their finances only. Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Yes, no, thank you so much, Kim, and my apologies for throwing something at you. Let me go back to Mimi. She's back, just in case, I don't want to lose her again. So Mimi, the question that we're looking at right now is, what are some of the challenges that you have seen in the work that you've been doing? What is it that young people are saying that's troubling them, and how are they communicating this to you or to society?
Thank you, Judith. It's crazy because young people are constantly telling us what's going on with them, and the disconnect comes where we address issues from our own traumas, our own understanding, our own upbringing. A lot of times, young people will put it on social media that they're struggling with certain issues. They will either post that they're going through a tough time, or they will constantly put up memes, because they'll use humor in certain instances to kind of hide what they're going through, but it's dark humor. They will have conversations with us as parents, as guardians, as friends of the family. But I want you to take you back to when you were younger, and this is, I'm throwing this question to everyone. When you were younger at that age and you were going through what you may have been going through, whether it's any form of anxiety, depressive episodes, anything really, when you spoke to your parents, if you actually did, what was the response that you would get?
It depends on the parent and
Mm-hmm.
their relationship with the child. If the parent was
Yeah.
or is nurturing, then they will listen. They will allow the child to be heard. If the parent doesn't know better, and
Mm-hmm.
they themselves, as you indicated, experience trauma, then they will shut the child down. In fact,
Exactly.
their child may even trigger the parent, thus the parent triggering the child, and it's a pretty
Mm-hmm.
sad situation, madam, I think.
Exactly, and that's exactly what I'm experiencing with a lot of my clients. It's a cycle of trauma, and everyone is stuck in it,
Yes.
but they do communicate,
Mhm.
and I think the important thing is for us to listen
Yes.
and for us to hear.
Amen.
Yeah. So I hope you did. I managed to answer that well. And another big thing also is, young people speak amongst themselves. You'll have a friend who says, "Oh, I have a friend who's going through ABC," but I'm not equipped to help them. I need to get them help, but they're not ready to get that help. So it is to encourage them to even come in as groups, because when it's a one-on-one situation, some of them are not able to really open up because they do carry levels of shame or guilt associated with what they may be going through. So even in group settings, I love to always encourage my clients to come in groups of friends, and we do something called the relationship health check, where it's really, I usually just kind of, I use it as a plaster, so that they don't notice what really we're going to be speaking on. But at the end of the day, all these issues come out and we're able to come up with ways on helping them to deal with them.
I have a
Thank you.
question. Thank you,
Yes,
Sister
ma'am.
Me. I'm sorry. I apologize. I have a question in
It's
relationship
okay.
to the statement that you just made. So is culture or tradition and or
Mm.
even poverty, can that be considered or have an impact on either mental or emotional trauma? And I'm asking the question based on the statement that you made about how young people respond to their environments in certain ways and how they're using social media to communicate that. As a grandmother, how can I recognize if my grandchild or any of my grandchildren or even my children in their adult stages are having some challenges?
Yeah.
So I wanted to know if economy or poverty has an impact, or that, and even tradition, cultural traditions. Thank
Yeah. Thank you for that. 100% culture and tradition is a really big part of it. When you look at in the African context, the way that I was raised, for instance, I was raised in a way where my parents have provided a roof over my head. They've taken me to a private school. I have food in my stomach every night, and if I tried to say to my mom, "Oh, I'm having a hard time with this, or I'm feeling this way," my mom would have instantly just said, "I don't see what the problem is that, Mimi. You have a roof over your head. I take you to good schools. What's the issue?" So it's embedded in our culture also as Botswana. We really don't speak much. It's always just like, "Oh no, it'll be okay." We have a Setswana saying where people at every single problem say, "Gota siama." translated as it'll be okay. So we're not really dealing with the issues. We're just saying, no, don't worry, it's going to be okay. So a lot of times there's a lot of avoidance. That's one thing that I really picked up, even just with the diagnosis that I make. There's a lot of avoidance personality disorders, this stemming from our culture and our environment. And when we look at rural Botswana, these young people don't have the resources. They don't know how to articulate what's going on with them, because they don't they've never been exposed to, oh, this anxiety that I'm feeling, what is this pain in my chest, where it's not physical, but I'm feeling something, I can't breathe, but I'm not asthmatic, I'm having a panic attack, so them not knowing what exactly is going on with them. You're right in that, your socioeconomic status counts, in terms of going through certain mental issues that are come up because of your environment. As a grandmother, as a mother, this is what I, when I do get the privilege of having sessions with my clients and their parents, I always say to their parents, we need to understand that we're raising our children in a generation of where they're being hit with a lot of stimuli. There is tons that is going on in the world, and the kids in cities and big towns, all of this information is hitting them all at once. On top of that, they're still going through puberty and becoming young adults. So there's physical stuff happening, there's hormonal stuff happening, but then there's also the environments. So we need to sit down, and this is where the relationship health check comes in. As a parent, you take time out of your day whenever, you could do this in intervals of every 3 months, every, 6 months, whatever you may decide. Sit down and say, hey guys, I just want to find out how you're doing, how am I doing as your mom? Is there anything that I need to work on as a parent to better this relationship? And then you get an opportunity as well to kind of speak to them in terms of what can you do better, as my child, as my granddaughter, as my niece, my nephew, whatever it may be, to better our relationship and how you're dealing with these things. Communication is such a big part of dealing with anxiety, with depression, with any behavioral issues with our children.
Thank you, Mimi. I think Dr. Johnson should continue, because I could hear you agreeing with Mimi as she was speaking. Dr. Johnson?
I was moaning. Yes, I was moaning, and I was in total agreement with her. I also think about the fact that if the parents don't know, and that's what I consider woke or being unwoke. Woke to me is being aware. Woke to me is understanding what is happening. In fact, the term woke is an African American term, which implies being cognizant and aware of what's happening in your community politically and socially. They have taken the term woke and made it negative. But if a parent is not woke, then they cannot help awaken their child. And that's part of the problem that we have right now. And just let me just touch a little bit into the epigenetics, because this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with intergenerational and generational trauma that goes back as far as the 25th dynasty. And in the 25th dynasty, we have pharaohs and kings who had their own slaves, who had their own ways of doing things. But however the environment, whatever the environment is like.
Brother Johnson, do me a favor. Dr. Ross here. I want to interject something before you go down this road.
Okay, sir, please.
But this is good. So I want to, and Mimi as well, I would like you guys to interject on if there's regional. But what we're talking about here, before you get that deep, is I want to put the context and terminology as the social determinants of health. I think when we speak about health and care and health and wellness, so social determinants of health are the factors, that impact you or influence you in growth, whether you're adult or what have you.
Correct.
But these are economic, social, cultural influences that impact your decisions and behaviors. And so I just want to speak specifically Um, this is studied for all different for humanity and different types of populations, right? But specifically for the youth, um, some of these important social determinants of health is or has um, been found to be national wealth, income inequality, educational status, sexual or gender norms, and ethnicity. So just pointing out some of these things which are important and impactful as a collective in the individual's development and this mental state and how they act and behave in the world. So I just wanted to put that kind of context to it there because that's what we're talking about on the clinical and mental health side are these social determinants of health. And then that can give us some things to begin to target as solutions. So
Can
continue,
I
please.
reword it? Okay, I'm gonna try to. I understand what you're saying. We want to keep it
Wait,
specific and
I'm
not too
almost done.
broad.
I'm almost
Oh, I'm
done.
sorry. Go ahead.
Um, and the other thing, speaking of being awoke, the other thing I wanted to say, it is very important as we work very hard to various degrees to become doctors. And it's important we're telling our young students and showing them young individuals that what you have to do to earn a doctorate, whether that's in education, medical, science, whatever it is, right? So while it is fun and games to say Dr. Johnson, it does a disservice to what we've put in as professionals to become doctors. And it also is also a confound when kids hear and listen to that and then they don't understand that. So I would prefer that that not happen. Thank you.
Just call me dealing with zero tolerance regarding their behavior, and they increase the number of school resource officers inside that institution. What we're doing is we're now creating the school to prison pipeline. How can a child at a fundamental level grow when they are flawed? How can they grow when the teacher that is teaching them also is flawed? We have a pretty bad situation. And the only way I feel part of it is that we must educate the educators that deal with these students, because if we don't correct that flow or that tide early, then we are preparing these children for incarceration. Now, we're talking about the children, but let's not forget the fact that that child is living in a dysfunctional and likely traumatized environment. The parent of that child that may be incarcerated will release from that correctional facility not knowing any better. So therefore, they go back into that environment. How can they lead their child when they can't lead themselves, when they're totally unaware? So when we talk about trauma, we're talking about awareness. The program that I created based on what I have lived and what I've experienced is called the Trauma Informed Corrections Program for returning citizens and other trauma affected populations. Returning citizens are those individuals who are incarcerated. I've dealt with youthful offenders. When they are locked up and they hold them until they're able to then be transferred to the adult realm or in uh, matched up with the adult facilities, if you will. These children, when they come into the institution, their social intelligence is low because there's no one that they can identify with on the outside that can help them. Social media has destroyed a lot of what's going on. Yes, it keeps us informed, but it also shows them what not to do that's correct. It shows them the lower trajectory of life. So when they come into the institution, the only thing they're talking about is sex, drugs, gang banging, and whatever else they can do that's not healthy. And at this level, when they come into the institution, if there's no one in there to help direct them, there's an organization called the Holistic Organization.org. If I understand correctly, they began in 2001. They take the principles of mindfulness because this is part of coping with trauma. If first of all, you have, and Doc, you and I talked about this, you have to be aware that you have trauma. Once you become aware that you have trauma, then you become empowered. Now, along with the awareness comes the acknowledgement, understanding that you will fail forward. But in order to deal with it, even with children, they must first be aware that their behaviors are behaviors that they're responding to regarding the traumas that they don't even know anything about. A cutter cuts and hides the cut. They don't want you to know that they're cutters, but they're in pain. Once someone becomes aware, they can become empowered. An empowered child, man or woman, is no longer a victim. They are past the level of awareness now where they can now employ tactics, mindfulness, yoga, or whatever it is to prevent them from responding to the trauma, which results in recidivism. They track recidivism easily by simply putting the metrics in the system and find out who returned to the institution within the last 6 months and were they here before. People don't realize this. They don't track the successful individuals that have taken the lessons, have learned and employed them. There is no longitudinal study that does that. Once an individual has been empowered through the awareness, they can then start living a purposeful life and start becoming disciples where they share this information with others and we collectively begin to grow. But until even that child has someone that comes into their their school, which is like an institution, and share with them that it's okay. You are not your trauma and it's not your fault. It's not your mother's fault or your daddy's fault or your daddy's fault. This is generational. And the only way that we can break this is through resilience. And resilience comes from awareness. And the awareness comes from sharing this information.
Hey, Doc, real quick, I do have to leave in about 1.5 to 2 minutes. My name is Lance, by the way. I hate to interject, but I really have to run in a second. But I just wanted to say I appreciate what you just said. I actually did a blog post called Detention versus Retention. And that's a big thing. We're not retaining students because they feel that they are, like you said, that they are detained. And I'll keep it very brief. I have a 3-step process that I use to help me kind of connect with these young folks. And that is the charge. You charge them, you charge them, you challenge them, and that's the way you can change them. So the biggest thing when you charge them is realize that they need to discharge. They need to get rid of that they need to let it out, get it out in the open. What is wrong with them? Discharge the trauma, the anxiety, the depression, the things that are causing those things. Because if they don't discharge that, there's no way that they can recharge. We have to recharge them after that. And after they recharge, they finally realize what you just pointed out, that they can be in charge. So that's the charge part of it. After that is we challenge them. And I just take out, I say, if you break the word challenge down, the word all is in there. All things are going to be challenging. All things, all aspects of life will be challenging, learning, growing, adapting to the facilities, to the incorporation of education, going from transition from school to the workforce, from prison back into the workforce, whatever those things are. We have to challenge them to change the status quo. And then lastly, that's the best way to make a change in their lives that we can see that is not only noticeable, but is, like you said, it is something that is trackable and something that is a metric that is what we call the analytics of it. So that's the one thing I wanted to mention before I head out of here. I've really been enjoying this, but I really resonate with what you said, Mr. Mark Johnson.
Thank you. Please don't call me doctor again, Blair. Please.
I heard. My brain is fixed to it, but yeah, that charge, that challenge, and then that change is really huge because if they don't realize that they're in charge, then they will not be able to they won't accept the challenge, which means that ultimately they will not change. So I appreciate it.
Please, let's connect, brother. Please, let's connect. I appreciate that.
Quick, Lance, before you leave us, can you please tell us a little bit more about yourself? I'm really sorry that I skipped you, especially now that you're leaving. Please, thank you.
Briefly, I am a principal of a school, but also I am a parent and a business owner who is trying to, like I said, enact change in our youth through my position as a principal and as an educator. But ultimately, I like to connect with people with Dr. Roz and find out the medical and sometimes the scientific reasons why these things are there. It's not always emotions. Sometimes emotions are tied to our physical being. So that's the thing that I really try to study and learn the most about. So So that's who I am. I'm here based in Atlanta and always looking to connect and help change other people's lives together.
Thank you so much, Lance, and we appreciate your contribution. I'm hoping that you will join us again on our next our upcoming episodes, because it sounds like you have a lot to share, and possibly also to link up with my my guests who are right here in Botswana, Mimi and Kim. I'm sure they would appreciate linking up with you at some point. Thank you so much, Lance, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank you.
FYI, Principal Lance is he's part of the team. Principal Lance is actually the one who will be editing the videos for the show. So for the before and after show. So he is part of GNN and all the whole team. He's interior. You guys will have access to Principal Lance.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Ras. I wanted to, I think we've lost Dr. Brother Johnson. If we could please bring him back up on stage, because I had a question for him around mindfulness and how mindfulness is currently being used with children. We started hearing more about mindfulness after COVID, at least I did. And I'm really curious to hear how it's being used with children. If we could please bring him back on stage.
All right. He just has to raise his hand, and I did want to mention an important thing that Mark did bring up was the epigenetics, and just to define. So epigenetics has to do with your genetics, obviously, but also how does all these things that we talked about, your behavior, your lifestyle, nutrition, how does all of that, including mindset and everything, your experience, passes down through the generations and impact the next generation and the next generation. So then this is where you get into looking at the trauma that's bigger than the individual. And so it has a lot to do with that. And as you said, as Mark can raise his hand up again to speak to, again, the solution side of this, and what we're doing or aiming to do on that mental health side, would be great. But I just wanted to mention the importance of that epigenetics and what that is and how it ties in across the generations.
Thank you, Dr. Ross. I'm not sure if Brother Johnson has heard me. If you could kindly put up your hand so that we can bring you back on stage.
In the meantime, Miss Kim or Selassie, would you like to have, being a younger Selassie, would you like to have some comment here on the subject we're speaking of and what you're seeing in your community with the youth?
Yes.
Yeah.
Could I just quickly actually go back to the point of how our culture affects mental health illness issues. In Botswana, like Mimi had noted, mental health is sort of a taboo subject, and the consequence of that is then that there's this stigma around mental health illness that a lot of people have, particularly parents with their children having or experiencing mental health challenges. And you find that then it puts them in a position of denial when they are confronted with symptoms of mental health illness in children, which can present as, for example, disruptive behavior or just changing in a way that the parent does not understand. So that denial then makes them unable to intervene. I mean, there's the obvious issue of mental health resources not being easily accessible, such as therapists and psychiatrists. You generally have to go to private practice in order to receive these services. There's only one psychiatric hospital in all of Botswana, but apart from that, the issue of stigma puts parents in a position where they're unable to really notice what the problem is, and there's a lot of internalized shame around mental health illness, particularly for parents, where they're unable to see a situation for what it is because they view it as them failing or unable to control a child or unable to help a child. For example, if mental health affects a child in such a way that they end up their grades dropping at school, parents will usually have a negative reaction to that. So yeah, our culture in Botswana isn't very open or supportive of mental health illness issues, and we have to intervene, like Mr. Mark had said, on a level where we now have to educate a lot about mental health illness, what it is, and the causes of mental health illnesses, and like what parents can do at home in order to support their child through a mental health challenge. Thank you. I just wanted to throw that in, the issue of stigma.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate you for bringing that up. I think it's something that we've been struggling with, definitely in Botswana, but I suspect in other parts of the continent as well, where we try to deny that mental health issues do exist and that they need to be addressed, and addressed openly and honestly. So that's something that we need to certainly deal with and continue to encourage the way Mimi has advised she does during her sessions, is to alert parents who are probably on the conservative side to open up to these issues and be very honest about the challenges that their children are facing. Thank you, Kim. Dr. Russ, were you still commenting on something? I apologize. I kind of lost track. We're still trying to bring back Dr. Mark Johnson to the stage, if that's okay. If you can rejoin us, we wanted to explore the question on mindfulness. But if not, we can jump ahead to other questions. Dr. Russ?
Yeah, you can go ahead, Dr. Bolden. Oh, yeah, I didn't have much to say. I think we're good here. The two things I want to say with this mental health thing, two things that you can look at is, again, someone mentioned, I believe it was Mimi, it could have been Kim, but one of our guest speakers, abrupt changes in behavior or emotional state that's continuous over a long period of time. And also listen. If you listen to conversations and what people are saying, sometimes they're using code, but if they're talking about a issue repeatedly and something is there, but they might not be coming outright to say it. So sometimes you have to listen to and just read in between the lines. Is something I wanted to mention as well. Is very important. They don't always directly say it, but they're bringing up the topic or around something and might not be saying specifically what it is because maybe they can't even articulate as one of the guests mentioned. So I wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Russ. And if I may welcome Miss Ida Jallo. I see that you had your hand up. Please kindly go ahead and ask your question or make your comment. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm joining you from New York, and I just wanted to quickly jump in, having had some of the previous interventions, because I happen to be a parent that has actually gone through the experience of having to deal with a kid that had mental health issues. And I am a very traditional woman coming from West Africa. So, of course, uh, in the beginning, my reaction was like, what do you mean you have depression? I mean, you're not hungry, all your needs are being met. But this is a daughter who had left my house in West Africa and was now studying in the West in England. And that was when she was now receiving diagnosis of being bipolar and also having depression. So everything that the that the previous speaker said about the culture in Africa is true, because it has to be a whole process of relearning and coming to appreciate that it's not just the physical needs that make up the individual, but they also have other needs that you need to tend to. So I particularly like one of the points that the previous speaker said about checking in with your children, having a check-in session with them where you ask them the questions. Is there anything troubling you? Do you have anything that you want to discuss? Is there anything that I am doing as a parent that it's giving you some trouble that you feel that we can discuss and you feel that I can improve on? I agree. That's not the African way. That's not our culture. We're not brought up like that. And we feel that we can bring up these millennials in the way that we've been brought up. But I find that that is not the case, that you do have to um, put culture aside at a certain point and actually be more sort of interactive and be more searching with your children if you want to give them as full a experience as possible. So I just wanted to jump in because of my particular experience, because we had to go through it all. I had to go to doctors in the UK who, in the beginning, because my daughter was already an adult, were refusing to even talk to me as the mother and telling me that, oh, for data privacy and all that, we cannot discuss her medical case with you. She has to give us consent. So that, to me, as an African, was also foreign, but it's something that I had to navigate. And she was very open and very transparent and wanted all the support and the help. So she was able to go to her doctors, go back to her teachers and tell them, yes, she's my mom, and I'm giving you my consent to be as open as you can to her about not just my academic status here in the university, but also to the doctors about my mental health, about what you're diagnosing, what medication you're prescribing. So it was a relearning process. And I'm happy to say that she's doing a lot better. She's since graduated. She's now married and, even expecting her first child. So as you can imagine, I'm very excited. But I wanted to use my experience to just give hope out there. Maybe there are some parents on this call who are experiencing the same thing. It looks very frightening in the beginning, but if you just stay the course and you try to check a bit of culture at the door and just listen and be receptive, I mean, it could be a discovery, but it could also lead to a leading process, a very healing process. That's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Can I thank you
Thank you so
so?
much, Ms. Jallo. I really do appreciate you coming up and sharing your experience and really inspiring, other African parents who may be going through the same. It is very difficult. And I hear you when you say, especially confidentiality, because this is your child. It becomes confusing. And I think your message also will resonate for people like Kim who work with, communities. So children who are still fortunate to have a parent. I wonder how they navigate that. How is it that the parents address these issues when they're told that their child is struggling with mental health problems? Thank you so much, Ms. Jallo, for
I have a
joining me. Dr.
question. Yes, yeah.
I'm coming right back to you.
Sorry, go ahead.
Please go ahead, Dr. Ross.
Yes, I wanted to ask. I hope Miss Yellow is still here on stage, or did she go off stage? But I had a question for her from the parent side of it, because depending on if you're a single parent or not, I wanted to know at what point did she sort this out? When did she see a change in her child, as well as the establishment, as she went through this experience and started to gain information she needed to get to that next stage to get her child the help? And did she or who did she get guidance from to begin down this path? And at what point did she actually see hope and things coming together? So some other parents that are going through this, if they might be at different stages of this, can have some hope and see as well, maybe get some more information from her experience.
Thank you, Doctor. That's an important question. Ms. Jallo, will you kindly come back on stage, raise your hand so that they can bring you back?
I would like to say something too, Yo, that if you know, when you give me the opportunity, please.
Absolutely. Sorry, Dr. Gladys, if I missed your hand. I'll come to you right after
Okay.
Ms. Jallo.
Okay.
Thank you very much for those questions. Like I said, it started very dark before it got better. So for my daughter, she has always been a brilliant student in Africa when I was raising her. So she was always an A student. After high school, I sent her to a finishing school in Canada, and she just zoomed through the finishing school also with A's. And then she had acceptance into the law school in the University of Kent in England, and she proceeded to go out there. And it was actually towards the end of the first year of her law school that I became aware that there was something the matter with her, because all this time she was struggling with the bipolar and the depression. And then when it was getting to exams time, I think, she was also worried about her performance at the exams and all that, and then she became manic. So that first year in law school, she did not take the exams. So the University of Kent allowed her to repeat the first year of law school. So she repeated the year. And towards the end of the second year, it was really bad. And she actually um, made the we talk about it now, and I tell her this all the time. She made the stupid decision to commit suicide, and she actually took a whole bottle of pills. And then while she had downed the pills and was sitting there waiting for them to take effect, fortunately, when I was sending them, she has a younger brother who was also in the University of Kent doing the foundation in law program. So she tells me, because she has always been very close with this brother and they love each other to bits. And she told me, Mom, when I was lying there waiting for these pills to work, the only thought that I had in my head was, how was my brother going to feel if she now comes to my room in the morning to wake me up or to say something, and she finds that I have died? What would that do to him? And because of that, she was able to call 911 and tell them that, oh, she had just attempted suicide. They asked her what she took. She told them the bottle of tablets that she took. And of course, they have her address and everything. So we're talking about the resources in the West. So the ambulance was able to rush to her university dorm where she was, and they were able to take her from the room, rush her to the hospital, pump all her stomach out, and then she was in the hospital as an inpatient there. So I think with the first day of the counselors and the therapists coming to her room and talking to her, she had now gathered enough courage to now call me international. Then I was working in my duty station of Ethiopia. I work for the United Nations. So she called me international and said, Mom, I did something stupid and I'm presently in the hospital. So I said, just say no more. And I was able to get a ticket that same evening on a flight from Addis Ababa going straight to Heathrow. And then, of course, right onto the train to Canterbury, where she was. She was in the University of Kent. So I went, and by the time I got there, they felt confident enough to discharge her from the hospital. So I found her in the dorm at the college. And I just went in there and I knocked on the door, and she got up and she opened the door, and it was the longest hug we've ever shared. We just stood there. There was no need for words or anything, and just stood there holding on to each other for the longest possible time. And then through the rest of the days of my trip, therapists were coming in to come and talk to her and follow up on her case. And she was telling them, oh, she's my mom. You can talk to her. You can talk to me while in her presence, and you can also answer any questions that she may have. So, of course, I was asking questions, and Google was also a very good resource, because if I talk to the doctors and they tell me a name of a drug that they had prescribed, you believe me that the first opportunity I get, I'm putting the name of the drug in Google and Googling what the drug does, what are the side effects. And, as a parent, you can imagine my fright, because some of these drugs, the side effects itself was breaking my heart, not to say whatever it is that they were going to take care of. But I was able to read around the topic. I was able to also do research online to see, just how do I check my superiority, my authority as her parent, my culture as a traditional African woman raised back in Africa. How do I check all that at the door and be there for my daughter and be as supportive, as non-judgmental? And I'm telling you this because it was a difficult process, because somewhere down the line, I would have a quarrel with her and I'll say, what possessed you to think that, I'm a Muslim woman as well. So suicide is something that is absolutely prohibited in my religion, which was also her religion. So I had all these questions floating in my mind, but also because I wanted to be supportive, I was trying to suppress a lot of these questions, but some of them do come up to the surface. You just cannot help that. And sometimes it's good for you to voice out the honest feelings and questions that you have deep down inside, because it would open up other avenues of discussion with my daughter. So yes, that's how it went. And a lot of around the topic, talking to her doctors, listening to them, them give.
Thank you, Ms. Jallo. We seem to be losing you. I'm not sure why. Maybe unmute and try again so that you can finish your thoughts. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your very personal journey with us, Ms. Jallo. We really do appreciate it. It's very touching. And
Yes.
yes, and appreciate as well as a mother the challenges that the confusion and the challenges that you must have been facing during that time. You're very brave, very brave for also sharing with us on this platform. Please go ahead.
Yes. So I was able to tell her, look, don't even worry about the law profession. If you don't feel comfortable doing that for any reason, you can always change. If you are not comfortable in England, in the University of Kent, you can also change. So of course, the brother, because of the traumatic experience and everything that we went through, wanted to transfer to the US, and she ended up also transferring to the US. So I've always tried for them to be in the same universities, because I feel that there's no support like family. The institution that you're in, the community you're in can give you support, but there's no support like a family member next to you. So even though the brother was younger, he now became the person who would check in on her sister all the time, just to make sure that she was doing well, to the point where sometimes she would even not want to sleep in her own dorm room and would just come over to my son's dorm room and crash out in his room. But that was okay because they were in the same university. So we went through all that process. So it was a long one, but I'm happy to say that she is
Is it just me or have we lost Miss Jallo again?
I think we lost her again.
Okay. No, thank you once again, Ms. Jallo. And family support is so critical. Thank you for reminding us of that and praying for you and your family, and that everything will continue to go well for your children and yourself. Thank you, Ms. Jallo. Dr. Gladys, may I ask you to please go ahead and ask your question or make your comments? Thank you. Dr. Gladys? I'm not sure if Dr. Gladys can hear me. Can anybody else hear me? Is it me or is it?
I hear you well.
We can. I'm not sure what's going on with Dr. Bolden there, but while she gets her audio going, can we just take this time out because we do have some listeners here on LinkedIn in this audio room. But Michael Camp, are you here? If you can
I'm here
unmute
now.
your mic.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm here. I got kicked out or something. Something happened. This is Dr. Glass. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, super. Okay. Yeah, what I would like to do is, first of all, I would like to commend Ms. Jallo for accepting that her daughter, has this issue. That's the first thing, because if you don't have acceptance, then you can't provide the support. Now, I just want to say from a university perspective, now in my syllabi, I always, I have a section, and we all as faculty are required to provide this, that to let students know that there are that if they need accommodations for whatever that reason is, because as a faculty member, I'm not privy to what the issue is with the student. However, I always emphasize that if you have an issue that, you want to get the services that are provided to you. For example, if they have to take take an exam, they're allowed to get double the amount of time. If they need, I had a student just last semester that required, he wanted me to put him in a room by himself. And I'm not just saying, I'm very supportive of that because I understand. So I've even had students, who felt comfortable telling me what their issue was, but I didn't ask them because that's none of my business. But but from a university perspective and as a faculty, I want to ensure that I'm providing them with what they need. So that's very important to me, that they feel comfortable and that I provide that support for them. So I even have a student this semester, I have no idea what his issue is. However, because of the way I encourage them that, look, if you need that, I want to give you what you need. This student, reached out to me. He went to the accommodation center and he provided me with the documentation that he qualifies for accommodation, and I'm going to provide him with what he needs. So I can't be a family member. However, I can be a part of that village. That's important to me, to be a part of that village and provide that student with what they need. So I just wanted to share that.
Can you quickly, Dr. Bolden, can you quickly explain the accommodation center at the university and the services loosely associated, but the concept and what that is?
Okay, so basically, let's say if a student has some type, it could be autism, it could be mental illness, or whatever that is. We have the accommodation center where the students can actually go and speak with that particular center, and then they have to provide documentation to them that they have this issue. And then what it is that so they fill out accommodation forms, and I don't make that decision. It's the accommodation center that makes that decision once they get the validation of the documents, and then they send down to me. this person qualifies for some type of accommodation. Now, it could be a physical disability. It could be a mental disability. I'm not privy to that. Okay, when it comes to physical disabilities, I've had students that were deaf. So you know that, and so they actually have a person, an interpreter that comes in and stays in there with that deaf student the entire semester. So that's why, in that case, of course, that's an expectation. I even communicate if there's something that the student doesn't understand, that interpreter will ask me so that I can try to break it down so that, it's more digestible. And then and a lot of times it's something, disability is something that you don't see. Okay. Right. So for example, if they need, usually if I give a quiz, I give them online and it's 10 minutes for the regular students and they might get 2 tries. For that student, they'll get 20 minutes and they'll get 4 tries. Mm-hmm. So I double everything. So that's why I emphasize to my students that if you have this issue, take advantage of it. I don't want them to see it as a stigma or that they're being looked down upon.
No, that's correct. Mm-hmm. And you, by
Dr. Gladys.
May I interject? Mark Johnson, please. May I interject?
Sure, absolutely. Please go ahead.
I love what you just stated, because what you're doing is you are addressing the issue at the ground level. This is not being discussed in some conference room or some lunchroom. You are actually doing it. And that's how we address these issues, by putting boots on the ground, bringing students in, letting them know that they are embraced, that they can hold that space, but someone has to be there to provide them that opportunity. And at the school level, where these middle schoolers and high schoolers, et cetera, they are, if there's no one there to stand in the gap with them, someone there that understands mindfulness, someone there that understands how trauma can adversely impact them, someone there that reaches out to the family, create a workshop, bring them together, nothing will never happen. So I applaud you and the dignitary in New York. She broke a cycle. She broke the chain that allowed resilience to come in and her have a better relationship with her daughter, to give her daughter the opportunity to rise. Unless we have someone who understands and can bring this awareness to administrators, to bring the programs into the school, the ideas into these schools, nothing will happen. We can talk all day, but what you're doing, young lady, you are making a difference. And I applaud you. And if other schools did that, some actually do it. Some schools, they have a 15-minute yoga session before the school even starts. That's not everywhere, but we have to act. And we have to get away from just talking, like Ms. Kim has stated in her post. The issues with policy and all of this, people arguing it, yeah, that's great. But we need someone there embracing these children and letting them know that there is a voice for them at their level. I was in Alaska, and I was talking to someone with juvenile justice, and I asked him, how do you deal with the children who have issues? Because we know amongst Native Americans, indigenous natives, alcoholism and suicide is very high. He said, what sense does it make if we provide this nurturing for them 8 months? 8 months they're incarcerated, or they're locked up, or whatever term you want to use. But then as soon as we release them back to that dysfunctional environment. Some kind of way must be infused into that environment so we can keep it going. And I know I'm being redundant, but
Brother Johnson, thank you so much. We're 2 minutes past the hour. Yes, Yodit, please. And Miss Paula and Yodit, go ahead.
No, this is
go ahead.
This is Yodit. This is Paula. Go ahead, Sister Yodit. So I'm going to be brief. So just so that the family is aware, go ahead. Miss Yodit, you were saying something?
No, please.
I can wait.
No, please proceed, Miss Paula. I'll jump in when you're done. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. So suicide is not new to my family and to me. My last son tried to commit suicide 3 times. So I understand from a personal perspective how that is. But what I want to focus on is my takeaway as a mother and as a grandmother. Here is my takeaway. My takeaway from the experience with my son was this. This is the first thing that I recognized about myself. See, someone asked the question, I think it was Sister Yodit, is this just a problem for Africa? It is not. This is a problem for people of color around the world. And I'm speaking of people of color because that's the environment that I come from. And whether you're in the underdeveloped or developing nations or the developed nation, the impact of the socioeconomic conditions, either the one that you're in or the one that you came from as a child, has a direct impact on your quality of life and how you see the world. Here is my takeaway. My takeaway was this. I did not realize that because of the culture that I come from, and because my objective was to help get my son restored to full health, that I was pushing him to the degree that we were trying all kinds of things to take away his pain, to help him function. All I wanted was my child to be healthy, not to be a doctor, a lawyer, anything. It's just to be healthy. You know, as people coming from the traditions that we come from, that's why I asked the question earlier about culture and poverty and its impact on mental health or just well-being completely. I realized that I wanted my son to be something that he did not have the energy to become. And I didn't need to have an objective. My only objective was for him to be
Miss
happy.
Paula, we seem to be losing you, Miss Paula. Have we lost Miss Paula completely, or?
I think so. You can go ahead, and when she comes back on, she can continue.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ras. We've clean run out of time. It's well, in Botswana, it's 5:35 in the afternoon, but I would like to give our guests an opportunity to maybe summarize. I actually love what Ms. Paula was doing, because in a way she was summarizing what happened today by sharing her personal experience. But if I could please start with, because we do need to close the session. I wish we had more time. There's so much more to explore in the subject, and perhaps we will bring it back again. But if I may start with Kim, any final words for us in the room at the moment? Kim? Okay, let me move on to, is Mimi still with us? No, Mimi's also left. Okay, Brother Johnson, may I give it to you then? If you could just give us
Yes,
your
ma'am.
final comments, and if you may touch on the mindfulness, which is something I'm so curious about, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We just have to keep working towards keeping the lines of communication open and being there for each other to help us in any way that we can. What I found is that when individuals recognize that they have an issue, that they respond, and I use myself as a veteran, I am aware of my alarms. I am aware of what will trigger me to respond to a situation, but then the mindfulness and the exercises and the learning and the tools that I've learned to stop that are the same tools that I would like to share with children and also individuals who are about to be released from prison, because if they cannot reoffend based on recognizing their triggers through mindfulness and other exercises like that, then we'll make the world a better place.
Thank you so much, Brother Johnson. Really appreciate your advice, your guidance, your experience, and your wisdom is something that I'm sure all of us have learned a lot from, and sincerely appreciate. I'm hoping that you'll come back and share more of the wisdom that you have. Thank you.
I will. I am part of the tribe.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Kim, can you hear me? Are you able to give us a few last comments before we close the session?
In a bit,
Because since I'm Kim as well.
You, Kim, and the information that you've shared with us. I know that the work you're doing with Hope Worldwide is extremely important to Botswana and our young people here. I'm hoping that you will also come back and join the tribe for future conversations that we're having. I think at some point, Dr. Ras had asked Michael to say something. Michael, would you like to say something before we close the session this afternoon?
And when you get a chance for me, I'd love to come in for a minute. Sorry, Michael.
Miss Kim, you're always the last one to speak for us. So yes, I'm coming to you in a moment. Thank you. Go ahead. Thank you, Michael. Really love your vote of confidence and for, well, again, giving us a summary of what happened this afternoon. It has been a fantastic session, really enjoyable. I see Ms. Paula's back. So Ms. Kim, just bear with me one moment. Let me see if Ms. Paula would like to finish off what she had started sharing with us. Ms. Paula?
While we wait for her, am I audible now? I've been having
yes, thank you.
issues with my mic.
Yes, we'd love to hear from you. Emma.
Oh, okay. Phew, great. I'm sad that we're out of time. I was really enjoying this conversation we were having. All I want to say in conclusion is that our speakers have emphasized the point that I want to say, that we need to make a community not just for children to be able to be empowered and intervene on that level, but we also need to make community for parents, because they're the people with the resources to intervene for children, and they're the first people that are going to realize, or they're the first people that come into contact with children when something's wrong at home. So if we could make it easy for parents to be able to intervene at home, then we as therapists won't have jobs or would need to do that much work, because it's important that parents are able to notice what is wrong and understand and interpret it right the way it is, and not interpret it as something else, and also intervene, right? And we need to strengthen the relationships that parents have with children, which is why we have parenting programs at Hope Worldwide, because you cannot intervene if you don't have a relationship with your child. If they don't find safety within you as a parent, then it makes the job even harder. So I just hope that, we look into that as a community that is aimed at providing support for children. We need to provide support for the contexts in which they grow up as well, and their caregivers. Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you, Kim. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Kim. We appreciate you. And please do join us for the future sessions that we'll be having as the Happiness Tribe. Miss Paula, I think I saw you. Great. No, we'll definitely keep inviting you. You must join the tribe then. Miss Paula, I think I saw you unmuting.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. I don't know what's going on with the technology today, but it's okay. I just wanted to say that this is the purpose for the Happiness Tribe. I mean, oftentimes we're asked, well, what does the Happiness Tribe do? Well, we focus on personal and professional development across the spectrum. And we want to be one of these places that's the safe space anywhere that we touch whether this podcast is being listened to now or in the future, please know that this is some place where we can have and we can come, we congregate and have these kinds of conversations, because there are not a whole lot of places where we can feel safe to have these conversations. Like I'd mentioned before, I had gone through a lot. So I'm on here as an individual, as a mother, a parent, and as the support system for the people around me, right? So our community should be first and foremost, because we should be the safe space. So, Sister Ida, thank you so much for sharing. I so appreciate it. As a parent who's gone through this, I understand exactly what you went through. Thank you for having the courage to share this, because this is how we grow. This is how we share our experiences with each other so that we can impact other people and they may not have to go through what we had to go through and can learn from each other. So thank you all so much. I'll close with that and I yield the mic. Thank you, Miss Yodit.
Thank you, Ms. Paula. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank all of our wonderful listeners. Thank you for staying with us. And we hope that you've taken something very important and interesting away from this conversation, something that will help you navigate the issue of mental health issues for your children, for your youth, and your community. I'd like to thank all our guests. Thank you so much, those we had invited and those who came in and shared their stories with us. We really do appreciate you. Thank you so much. Michael, for the support that you're providing us in the background. I don't know if folks know that you're the one responsible for helping us stream this session today. And of course, I need to thank and would like to thank Ms. Paula and Dr. Ras for your support this afternoon in helping to direct this event. Now I'm going to hand over to Ms. Kim, our very own Ms. Kim, who always closes for us. It's been a pleasure, and thank you so much for your kind attention, everyone. Take good care and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Ms. Kim.
Let me grab that mic before Miss Kim gets going really quick to say, Miss Yoda, you knocked this one out the park. I'm pretty sure there's going to have to be a follow-up, maybe a workshop or something like that, that you can put on in this area and bring back your guests. Maybe we can get the THT some discount to take this workshop so we can learn some more actual skills and implementations that we can use. And the other thing I wanted to mention was thank you again, Michael Camp and the Generational Learning Lab for again providing the service of restreaming for us. And finally, I wanted to mention when we talk about this mental health in the youth, anxiety, suicide, not only that child, especially when that child has siblings, it affects the siblings too. And so we have to remember them in the mix of dealing with that child that has the primary problem. Remember this reverberates out, right? So it impacts their siblings as well. And so that's important not to lose in all of this. Thank you. And now on to the Miss Kim.
Our speakers, our awesome host and moderators. You've done the workshop justice, and our very humble listeners that are patiently waiting to hear the gems getting dropped, and for the bravery for each one of you and what you've had to deal with. And this just goes deep into, we're all walking wounded. We all walk wounded. We all have stories to tell. Some of us, it could be childhood trauma that we still have not confronted or we don't even know about it. But there's just so much, just alluding to all of you and your sentiments. You hear one story, and before you start grieving it, somebody else comes and says, Miss Paula says, I've gone through it 3 times. And I'm thinking, and how do you keep going? How do you witness your child going through that? And you still have your beautiful slogan that I love so much. And you just said it now. It's okay. This is the cup I have, and I'm going to drink from it. Let's not forget, the body keeps us score. It's easy for us to go through it, sometimes deal with it, sometimes sweep it under the carpet.
And so with my humble request, I come to request all of you, can we do, should we call it what, session 2, which would be a proper workshop, a 2-hour workshop? Because as you all leave, I felt like this should have gone on. There's so much to learn. There's so much to share. I'm pretty much encouraged. I hide and sometimes run from these discussions. So I was trying to keep off as much as I could. But from all the speakers, I went like, yeah, but this is it. And this is what we are living with. And we have to confront these issues. We just have to be brave enough. We've got a lot of work to do. We have to create awareness. We need to create safe spaces. There's a person in Zim, a psychologist, who has created what he calls the friendship bench. This friendship bench, it's a movement that's run by grandmas. And like everybody, I think Mimi and Kim, you all shared your sentiments on this is, and Ida, this is, suicide is, it was there in Africa, yes, but it wasn't as common as it is now. It was actually a taboo. Depression as well. And it has so much to do with our way of life. From school, I sat with my grandma, who mentored me, who we went to fetch water, fetch firewood, make meat so casually. There's no TV, there's no cell phone. I'm not competing with the neighbor's child because she has better shoes than mine. No. So what our kids are going through, we didn't go through. Life was just like an ashram, like therapy throughout. It wasn't pronounced and called therapy. Maybe we didn't even know that was therapeutic. But it was such a holistic, gentle, humble, nice way of growing up, which now we look back and say, that was priceless. Now here we are as working parents. We don't have time to parent. We become strangers with our kids. Our kids are iPad kids. We live in a commercial world. So it's always the next check to keep our kids going. The cracks have to appear. And as you've all seen, the chicken are coming home to roost. Now that we are aware, we can do better. It's a call for action, especially most of us as educators. All those things, mindfulness, yoga, incorporating all that within our education. And then, very important, we still have to keep crying out to our government, the policy makers. Something's got to give. It has to, before it's too late. They are also victims of all this. It's very sad if you go to most of our mental hospitals, they're the majority. It's no longer for the needy person in the village. Actually, I think the needy village in the village is very content with their simple life. It's the highlights in the city. Okay, my dogs are telling me to shush now. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm grateful. I'm humbled by all your sentiments. Ida, you're brave, you're courageous, you're awesome, and everyone else, Miss Paula. And let's just make that chain that we can support each other. Let's make this, we've had the Happiness Tribe as our safe space. Okay, my dogs have their party with their monkeys, so let me let you go. Thank you so much, everyone. We will be sharing sort of a blog post on this discussion, what happened. I'll leave somebody else to close the room. Miss Paula, you're laughing at me, so over to you. Get the mic, sorry.
Thank you so much, Miss Sally. So yes, so as we're seeing and as we're feeling, this is really cause for further discussion, in-depth review, and so we're going to look at doing an actual full-blown few hours session, and we stay tuned. We all have your contact information. We'll be in contact. We'll send out the notifications so that you're aware that this is going to be coming. And we really hope and pray that you can participate, bring your family members with you, bring your tribe, bring your village, tune in. It's going to be on radio. It's going to be streamed on radio as well. So even if you can't see it, you can listen to it. These are discussions that need to be had because our health and our wellness, really, our wealth is our health and wellness. And so this is part of what the Happiness Tribe is about, creating healthy, balanced human being who can really provide development on personal and professional levels. Thank you again. We've probably overstayed our welcome. We appreciate your presence. Please become a safe space, a wear shore for those who may need you just in passing, even if it's a stranger. Let us all be each other's keepers, because this is what the world is about. It should be about love. Thank you all so much. And you
Miss
have,
Paula,
yes, sir.
can I be honest? I want to push this another 7 minutes and just make it a 2 hour mark. Whoever wants to stay can hang out with me. We can make it an official end, but I'm gonna hang out till the 2 hour till noon here. So another 7 minutes and
Okay, Dr. Roz, we
We
can bring up
good.
anyone else who'd like to speak.
There's
I'm with
somebody in
you.
the audience who wants to speak. Lydia, if you can kindly, she's put her hand up. Dr. Ross, if you could kindly bring her up. Thank you.
I don't know if it was my turn to go.
It is your turn. Go ahead, Lydia.
Hi, my name is Lydia. And I've just been listening in, and I can relate, agree, and share my experience. I am a child that experienced trauma at a very young age. So for me to hear you guys' take on how you can help kids with trauma and just the different outlets coming from that aspect, I feel it is a community. It's a community-based thing. I had a grandmother, and a father. I experienced trauma at the age of 1 with my mother being passed, and then at the age of 14, I experienced my father transitioning as well. And my grandmother was my support system. So to see her go through that, not alone to only see myself go through that and the things that I've done, I knew something was wrong with me as I'm older to be able to speak about it. But going through that, I just felt like it was kind of normal. Maybe because I've already experienced, the death of my mother from the age of 1. So hearing you guys talk about the community, my grandmother did reach out and try to give me help and a therapist and things like that. And I was grateful for it, but at the time I really didn't really want to speak about it. So it was there, but it was kind of still not a outlet. So it wasn't until the death of my grandmother where I was able to sit still and just really, I feel like, experience grief and all the grief that I was holding on. And dive deep into self-love. So that is I'm an advocate for self-love, self-care, because it changed my life, but also having a community and people to support you as well. I was introduced to a young lady by the name of Stormy Wellington, who is a coach. And she has a thing called awakening, where you would just get to know yourself, love yourself, and embrace yourself. But you ask those deep, deep questions. And if I don't know if I was not able to experience that, would I would able to be start my healing. So I feel like that was a very big pivotal moment. I think that when kids experience trauma, they have to first alone accept that something is wrong, and then they need a place like you guys are saying, or a community, or a workshop, or something that they can go through with other people that are in that area, in that field, or in, that are just in that need to become more than what their circumstances is, to go through that with them, because that was really a pivotal moment. Like, and that is what fueled my business to this day, which is um I'm a self-love, like I'm the voice for the voiceless, but as far as to bring change and create spaces for them. So I feel like the way that we can change our trauma is through the words that we speak, the emotions that we the things that we speak, the things that we hear, the things that we see, but also the environments and the experiences that we put ourselves in. So I can say so much, but I don't want to say too long. But I did was thinking, and I said, "Oh, I wish he would make this call longer, because these topics that you guys talk about are so much deep, and it's so much that can be unpacked in so short time. It's like, damn, as soon as the conversation gets started, it's like it's time to go." So I'm grateful that you extended this conversation, because I really just had spoke with that with some people that I was listening to the conversation in with. But yes, this is a beautiful way to unpack, and I am here as an advocate for the kids that experience trauma. That it is okay. I've never thought about um, committing suicide, but it did get hard. It did get hard. But I'm grateful for community. So the way I live my life and the way I still continue to process my grief is through community, through always having good energy around, always keeping my mind, always make sure I'm personally developing. So the aspects that we all live life that we need to, to do to grow, those are the things that I lean in on. So that's why I feel like self-care and self-love it has to be the number one drive, because that's what it is initially, is self-loving thyself. I'm complete.
Wow, Lydia, let me just say you are the dreaming gem, and we will find out more what all of that means. And welcome, please join the tribe. Thank you so much for sharing. Please, Miss Yodit, this is your show.
Thank you, Dr. Raz. I just want to appreciate Lydia. Thank you so much for your patience. You waited until everybody had spoken to say you'd like to share as well. We appreciate that, and hopefully we will make the workshop happen. I'm very excited about it because I think there will be many others would like to come and share their experiences and their wisdom. So thank you, Lydia, and thank you, Dr. Raz, for insisting that we continue. There's 1 more minute. Ms. Paula, I see your mic open. Please go ahead.
I just wanted to say that we all have expectations about ourselves, but more than that, as parents, we have expectations for our children. And I don't think it ever crosses our mind that sometimes our expectations may be unrealistic, or it may not be in alignment with what they want, what their skills are, what their talents are. What I'm asking is, as parents and as grandparents or as siblings, we need to be able to listen to our people, the people that we love, our young people around us. And we need to be able to respect who they truly are, not who we envision them to become, but who they are. Because at the end of the day, I personally would rather have a healthy family member than someone who is probably financially successful, but is broken and fragmented. And this is the reason we have challenges in the world. And the reason I brought up tradition is because as a Garifuna, our tradition really was about education, everybody becoming a doctor, a lawyer, a professional. And in our cultures, I don't think we ever considered the creative people who are really running the world now, how important that is. If you want to be an actor or somebody else, we should create spaces for those people in our lives and encourage them, because we may be doing them a disservice with our well intentions. That's all I'll say. Thank you. And I yield the mic.
Thank you, Ms. Paula, Dr. Russ, everybody on the call, Ms. Kim. I don't even want to say anything else, Ms. Paula, because the way you just finished the session for us is absolutely beautiful. Just the one thing is listening. It's the hardest thing to do. I think we don't listen well enough, and we need to do that more. But thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Dr. Russ, may I close the session now?
We
Okay, I
got
think
we got what we needed. We needed to hear from
okay.
Lydia, and that's what we needed to hear from, and we got that. Do what we need to do.
Great. No, thank you, everyone. Please enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Stay safe, and let's keep our hearts open to those who need us. Thank you so much. Take good care. God bless.